Hey everyone, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. We're here with Jared and Julie today, which you all have seen both of them before a couple times. So we're gonna do something new today, something we've never done before, and that is an interview with someone who's had an experience. And this particular experience is one we've covered a few times. A lot of you newer people probably have never heard it. Um, it's an experience Julie had at St. Albans. We featured it as a story last Halloween. It's probably one of my favorite stories of all time. Um, okay, so first, we've got a list of questions. Um, the first one is, Julie, can you give us a quick rundown on St. Albans? Why it's so special?
Well, St. Albans was originally built in 1892 up on a bluff over top of the New River in current day Fairlawn, Virginia. It was originally built as a private preparatory school for wealthy boys, mostly from the South. It had a really good reputation for a while, but it quickly turned bad because it became the jocks versus the more brainier kids. And a lot of bullying went on, and it spread out of the school out into the town of Radford. And eventually it got to be such a bad reputation that, all the good people, quote unquote, didn't want to send their sons to the school. So then the school ended up closing down. The building sat basically empty for a few years, and then it was opened back up. And I believe it was 1916. Dr. King come in and bought it and opened it up. He had an idea of, he worked at other psychiatric facilities, and the treatment back then was, really barbaric. They basically would just treat it like zoo animals. And he had a theory that if you treated the person like, in a good way, like family and having like a home atmosphere, not just in cages, that it could help them better. Which, I believe he was on to something there. So that was his dream, and he got some investors together, and they opened it up. They were so short on money, they couldn't even afford new letterhead. So they kept the name St. Albans from the school because there was still letterhead with St. Albans. And so then it functioned as I think it was like January 1916 or 17. They admitted their first patients, a lot of alcohol treatment. Then it really just kind of evolved into, not just for psychiatric issues. It was for, if you was homeless, there was a place to stay. If families, they had too many mouths to feed and they couldn't feed the children, they would take children there and, drop them off, and they would live there. But the place, it was overcrowded, had a lot of overcrowding, but everybody there had a job to do. They farmed their own food. They had their own dairy cattle. They had their own grapes. I mean, they grew everything. Matter of fact, they were so successful with their gardening that during the Depression, they basically kept the people in Radford alive with food
because they had. I'd heard that too. Yeah, well, I guess of course I've heard a lot of it. I've been there so many times. Yeah, sorry.
So it was stayed privately owned up until I want to say like maybe the 90s, and then a hospital network bought it out, and then eventually just got too old to be upgraded and updated and kept current. But while it was a hospital, they were kind of considered cutting edge and for the times, but they would, now it's, we look at it and go, yikes, can't believe they did that, because they would, electroshock therapy, which back then it was this experimental. Now they know where to set the voltage and all that stuff. So, but back then it was just try this and see what works. Then they also would do hydrotherapy, which is where they put them in these tubs with water and cover them. And then it could be days at a time, maybe. And they would like do hot water and then do cold water. And then they would do insulin shock therapy, where they would purposely put them into an insulin shock and then bring them out of it. I think their theory was if you could shock the system, it would, knock you out of whatever psychiatric or disorder or whatever was going on with you. Today that sounds crazy. I mean, no pun intended. It just sounds just wild that they would do that to people. But back then they were, that was kind of cutting edge technology, and it was a big step up from just throwing them in cages and treating them like, like animals or something.
Yeah, because there was one time in history where they thought it was demons.
Yep.
Yes.
Affecting people, and where it's nothing, no kind of physical or any kind of mental problems going on inside. It was demons.
Yeah. So so for his times, I mean, it sounds bad now looking at from today's point of view, but back then it was a much more humane treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And they would actually set up as ones that were healthy enough and able to. They had a dining hall. They had with the meals were served with linens and and fine china, and they had tea in the afternoon. I mean, it was I think they tried what they could do, but meanwhile they were like torturing people to try to help them. But
so yeah, if you look at some of the other places from back then, those were way worse than St. Albans was. That's like
Desjardins, somewhere like that was horrible for people.
It'd be spec for 30,000 people, and they'd have 80.
Yeah.
And there'd be like all these people. I heard about one that got shut down. There was like feces in the floor, and nobody had clothes. And oh gosh,
yeah, it was just bad. And and the really sad thing is, back in those days, it really didn't take a whole lot to get put into a facility like that, especially if you were a woman. I mean, it could be something like, okay, my husband's tired of me, and he's got a new girlfriend or whatever, and he's got to get rid of me. So, okay, she's crazy and lock her away, because women were kind of property basically, and that happened a lot. Women were put in there. Postpartum depression, that would get you put into a facility like that. It's all kinds of things like that. It didn't take much, really. Maybe you could have been a woman and had too many opinions, and it wasn't allowed, so they might put you away for it.
I had to call him about my wife.
We're going to hear bad news about Jimmy one day. You're not careful,
Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy will be missed.
Yeah. Find me floating in the New River. Oh gosh. Well, Jared, do you wanna
Julie, what do you think made you want to volunteer?
Well, what got me started up there is, when I was a kid, we used to go to haunted houses during Halloween every year, and just loved that stuff. And my mom, she was one of those, she loved like horror movies and things like that, and I kind of inherited that. Big Stephen King fan and everything. And I'd always wondered what it would be like to work in a haunted house like that. The year before I got to St. Albans, it was just kind of a fluke. A friend of mine knew somebody that was going to open a haunted house down in Roanoke, and there's a group called Haunted Star City. So I went down there. I really didn't think they was going to bring me in, because I had zero experience, at doing that, but kind of got my feet wet there. They opened one year and then didn't open back up anymore. And I thought, well, that was a cool experience, and I'll kind of sad I'll never get to do it again. But then late summer of the following year, a fellow actor I worked with at Haunted Star City contacted me through Facebook Messenger and wanted to know if I could do him a favor. Him and his fiance, they were wanting to get married, and they were into like the Corpse Bride and all that. And they had talked to the director at St. Albans about see if they could get married up there. And they need to go up there and talk to her. And they lived the other side of Roanoke, and neither one of them drove. So they said, would you give us a ride? So I'm like, okay. I'd heard of the building. So I was like, I want to go get a peek at this place. So I said, sure. So I picked them up, took them up there. Before it was said and done, ended up being talked in. I was going to be the maid of honor, and they made a deal instead of them paying to use the facility. And as soon as they found out were scare actors at haunted houses, Marcel, the director, she made them a bargain. How about instead of, paying them money, then they would have the wedding. What they would do, they was going to do a Halloween night. And that year, the start of the route was going in through the grand staircase door. So right there on the big porch. And the plan was they were going to get married there on the porch. And course, I'd be one of the witnesses, and we'd all be in costume. And then we would go through and go through the haunted house. But then in exchange for the use of the facility for them to get married, we would act for one night to, help them out. So it's like, okay, well, that sounded great until about 2 weeks or so before we were supposed to get started. And I got to thinking about, I had heard rumors about this place being haunted and all that. And I started getting scared. And I was like, well, I don't want to go in there and be in this dark place and get scared and go running out of there and embarrass myself and everybody else. So I ended up calling up there and I asked, can I come in, just early and just trying to give it a try for a night? And went up there and I loved it. I mean, I had some crazy, the very first night I had an experience in there. But I think what drew me in, once I got over the initial fear of it, and the curiosity kicked in, because, I'm trying to, debunk and explain these strange things that I'm seeing, experiencing, going on in there. But I actually was just supposed to go up there and act one Halloween night, and I got sucked into that place. I don't know. I think it does call to people. I think pretty much every volunteer up there has a story of how they got, sometimes are really convoluted stories of how they ended up at St. Albans. And we tend to stay when we get there, because the building is just, I've never seen anything or experienced any place like it. I mean, and I've been to a few other places, and it's just, I tell you, I went in there and I was always open-minded, but a little skeptical. I'm still a skeptic. I'm a skeptical believer at this point. But I have experienced so many things in there that before that, I'd have been like, okay, maybe you're drunk or something, but then you got an experience, and then other people are experiencing it. And so I'm at the point now, I'm open. I believe anything. If you tell me you've seen this or that, I'm like, you may have. I don't know, because, I've just learned that the things you always thought weren't possible, there you are. You experience it in there, and it's just, and they'll make sure that they're there too, especially, like just a regular work day or something. They're sweeping the floor or something. I've had some of my wildest experiences just on a work day. They just they got to let you know that they're there. I've had little pebbles thrown at me. My hair, I used to mess with my hair all the time. Have heard my name called. I've heard screams out, and I don't know, it's just these things. And then just with me, I don't know what it says about me, but the more it happened, the more curious I would get about it. And, so now I'm trying to go replicate that and see if it'll happen again. So trying to figure out what's going on in this building. And I still don't have any answers. I probably have more questions now than I ever did. But I always thought before I was open-minded, but I'm way more open-minded now than I was, 10 years ago.
Well, you actually went into our follow-up question about if you feel called. Do you want to go ahead and or felt called? Sorry. Do you want to go ahead and tell us about this awesome story that you have from St. Albans from working there?
Okay, sure, I will. All right, so this was 2014, and it was this particular night. This was later in the season. This was the actual Halloween weekend. And I was up on the, they had placed me up on a set up on the second floor hallway up above. It's called the King Center. And I don't know if you remember this, Jimmy, but you remember we went to the top of the grand staircase and you go all the way around behind it, and there's a long hallway, went all the way down from one end all the way to the other. But in the middle, there was this open area where the rocker room was at. So my set was from the rocker room and then on down the hallway. And then I had another guy that was working. The idea was they come by and we jump out or do whatever, scare them, send them on their way downstairs. So we had been doing that. I'll tell you, the first night I was up there, I was scared to even go down the hallway. The hallway is a patient rooms on each side. And I was so scared of that building. I was scared to go in those dark rooms. Then, after a couple of nights, I got brave. There was the one room I felt comfortable in. I don't even know why, but I was like, okay, I'll do this one. And it was great because this room, the door from where vandals had been in there, was this big, huge hole locked in the door. I mean, it was big enough I could stick my head through. And so I came up with this idea. I'd go in that room and shut the door, and I'd wait until the people would come down the hallway. Then I'd pop my head out through this hole and, say something crazy or scream, make some kind of sound and scare them. And then I would fling the door open and run out and chase them down the hallway. And it worked great. And I start, the more you scare people, the more fun it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to the Halloween weekend, and my youngest daughter was going to come through the haunted house. And she had just started dating a new guy. We'd never met him. And so they were going to go up and come through that night. And so that's how my one son-in-law met me. I scared him in a haunted house. But they came down the hallway. It was getting close to closing time. It was probably about 30 minutes before we was due to close. And that night it was cold. It was raining. It was just just one of those kind of nights. Everybody coming through had on hats and jackets and stuff. So I'm standing there and I could hear a group coming. So I get ready with the door closed, and I hear the group coming, and I hear my daughter giggling. So I recognized her giggles. So I was like, here we go. But before she came, she was telling me about, her boyfriend. A lot of people, they're like, that stuff's not scary and everything. And so she was like, Mama, you got to try to scare him. I just want to see him get scared. And I'm like, I'll try, So I hear him coming, and I'm looking through the hole in this door, and I see two young men walk by down the hallway, and behind them I see my daughter and then another girl. So it's like two couples, right? I wait for the guys to go through, and then I stuck my head through and did my thing, and they kind of kept walking. So then I flung the door open to go out, and of course my focus is on the guys. I'm not sure which one's her boyfriend. I know one of them is, and I'm going to go after him. So I go chasing him down the hall, and and I will say he did screech a little and kind of run backwards to get away. But to get to them, the hallway's not that wide. You've been in it, and I had to kind of slide and go around the two girls to get to them.
I don't even know how you did that as thin as the hallway is.
There's not a lot of room in there. And I tell you learn to stay low and duck, because sometimes people, when they get scared, they don't mean to, but they'll unintentionally try to hit and stuff. So I learned to lay low and watch those hands, But anyway, I really had to swerve around them. And I went after the guys, and, anyway, got them all down the hallway, and my partner, John, set them down to go down the stairs. And so I walked down there. John knew my daughter was supposed to be coming. And so when I got there, they was starting down the stairs. And I told John, I said, that's my daughter there. And I said, not the one in the back. I said, but the other one that's laughing like a fool, just keeps giggling, because she was having a blast. She was laughing. The other girl didn't look like she was having fun, though. She looked bored the whole time coming through. She had her hoodie jacket on and pockets in the front. She just had her hands in the pockets and head down. Really no reaction of anything at all. So they start to go down the stairs. I turn around and go back down the hall. Well, my daughter come back around and hugged me, and she's like, you got him, Mama, and was laughing about it. Well, the girl was still behind her. So I'm hugging my daughter, and I wave at the girl, and I'm like, hi, I'm Heather's mom. And, then they kind of went on their way. So a couple of days later, it was on the Sunday, I was visiting with my daughter, and we was talking about them coming through the haunted house, and I'm asking them, did y'all like it? Did you enjoy yourselves? Did you have a good time? And and she was like, yeah, they did. And I was like, well, what about the other girl? I said, what happened? She didn't seem like she was enjoying herself. I hope she found something in there she enjoyed. And Heather's like, what girl? I don't know. Is it the other guy's other guy's girlfriend? I guess, I don't know. And she said, no, Mom, it was just the three of us. This other guy didn't have a girl with him. It was just the three of them. Now, at first I thought, is she trying to have fun with me? Because she already knew I was a little scared in that building, right? And I thought, she's having fun with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And they really, what's her name? And she's like, no, there's nobody there but us. She said, the only people that she saw in that hallway, because first she's like, was there another group behind us? And I said, no, it wasn't a group. It was just y'all. And so she said the only people she had seen was her boyfriend, the guy that was with them, me, and then she says, and then the other two actors at the end of the hall, the guy and the lady. And I'm like, what lady? Well, she saw a grown woman dressed in a nurse's outfit that's like a long, sound like maybe from like the 90s or so because of the length of the skirt. But she said, she described her. She had auburn colored hair. She had this and that. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about either. So we're both sitting there looking at each other like, what are you talking about? You know,
So
but she actually got so close to this woman, she had to squeeze around her. And she said they made eye contact. They smiled at each other.
Huh.
So I saw a young girl that stayed with
Okay.
Heather, and she saw a whole nother woman in the corner. So I don't know.
Okay.
So we both
yeah,
come out
that's
of
what I
there
was gonna-
seeing people that weren't there.
Yeah. So you guys, I was gonna ask if the well, I knew this story, but I was gonna ask if they, you know, were similar looking, but it sounds like they were not. That part I did not know.
No, from our descriptions, it could have been this is two separate looking people, because what I saw was a, you know, late teen, early 20 girl with a hoodie on and jeans, hoodie up over her head, and I couldn't really make out her face really well because it was just kind of
hair
shadowed in
color.
there. Couldn't tell you because she had
You
that
know,
hood up, which was
it's possible they could have been the same person.
you know, I've thought
Different
that was just
outfit.
maybe we perceived her, you know, in different ways, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure where the girl I
how
saw
she
was
set
at in
her-
relation to what what Heather saw when she saw. So I don't know, you know, if it was like, if it could have been, I mean, it's possible, but
Yeah.
you know, we both left that conversation scratching our heads and going, what in the world went on here? So I
Huh.
contacted the security up there, and I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. I know I saw, well, I might be crazy, but I know I saw 4 people in this group. And, you know, it's like, can y'all pull? Well, that hallway didn't have a camera right there. It went out on the other end of the hallway, so you couldn't really see anything there. And I'm like, I know there was a girl with y'all. But to this day, that was kind of the most disturbing thing, because forever after that, anytime I was worked in a haunted house and a group would come through, there was times I would wonder, you know, is everybody that I'm seeing, everybody else seeing them? You know, what's
Yeah, I
going
would
on here?
too. Well,
But,
yeah. I
but
mean,
it was just really strange, because there was nothing at all about that girl that, other than she didn't look like she was really having a good time. She just looked like she was just kind of tagging along, which was, that was the only really thing that, looking back, that was different about her. But otherwise, I mean, she looked just as real, just as solid, just as there as anybody else. And it just kind of just really blew my mind. And I was, so I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw. But the thing is, it stayed with my daughter. No matter where she went, this girl was behind her. So I don't know if you know, so that's something we've wondered too. Is it something, you know, was it some kind of a protective spirit there with her, or is just something for whatever reason lagged along behind her? But I do know when they left there that night, when going back home into Salem, she had a wreck that night.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. Nope. She flipped her Jeep down there in Salem down River Road. Everybody was fine and everything, but it was just kind of added to the whole, you know, did that have anything to do with it or what? And
Wow. Oh.
so, yeah, and then I felt bad because I was like, I got her to come up there in the building, and did something follow her home, you know, but she seemed to be fine. But she saw a nurse. It was, you know, like 30s or so. And I saw a much younger girl in jeans and a striped hoodie.
Wow.
But she's talking about who she saw. She thought it was one of the actors, because she said she had makeup on. I said, what was she dressed like? And she said, well, she had makeup on. She said, not like costume makeup like we had, but just regular makeup. So, but since then, I've learned, I have a theory of who the nurse was, because there have been reports of a nurse that haunts there. And what I heard was the nurse committed suicide and that she haunts the place. But I don't think I've seen her, but I'm pretty sure I heard her up there before. She tends to come out when people are frightened or scared, and she's more of a calming, you know, keeps you calm, which actually worked with me. It makes sense that, because I don't know, one other night I was up there, I found myself up there alone in the hallway. And at that point, you couldn't have paid me money to go anywhere in that building by myself. I didn't know my way around. I didn't know anything about it. And of course, it's all decorated for haunted house. So, you know, it's kind of creepy anyway. And it was our last night. And what we would do is, after we would close for the night, the actors from Major Graham's, where they have their haunted house, they like to, after they would close, they would come down and come through our house. And so we were close to the public, but we would wait for them to come down and come through. And so that's the point we were at. We were closed, and we had some time just to kill, waiting for them to get there. So I said, well, I'm gonna run down, and take a little break. And I had like little teen actors up there, and I said, I'm gonna leave my stuff here with y'all because they were gonna stay up there. And I ran downstairs, and then I come back up, and I get up there, and I go around the corner, and I notice it's eerie quiet. There's none of the sounds on. It's just the little low lights and the fog, and it's really quiet. So immediately I'm scared because, oh no, I'm up here by myself and there's nobody to help me if something comes to gets me. And so I had time to register. I'm scared. I want to get my stuff, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to go in there or not. And then I start hearing this lady singing. And I thought, oh, there's somebody up here. Let me go find them so I'm not alone. So I go walking, and let me tell you, I walked all the way down from my end of the hall, all the way down to where the grand staircase is, and all the way back. And the whole way I heard that singing, but she never got any closer or any farther away. It was just the same. So I ended up just stopping in the hallway and trying to figure out what she was singing. And I did. I got so focused on her, I forgot to be scared anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was standing there listening to this singing, and then one of the other volunteers come up looking for me because we were going to have a meeting. And as soon as she come up the steps and come around the corner, the singing stopped. I tell you, I grabbed my stuff and I skedaddled down them stairs. But I think that I might have heard this woman singing up there. But I know I heard somebody singing. There was nobody up there. And it was so eerie. But so I think that might have been who she saw.
I think I've heard of people seeing that nurse. Other people.
I want to say, I could be wrong. I have heard other people say that they've seen her, and I want to say that somebody told me her name was Elizabeth, but I'm not really sure about that.
It sounds real familiar.
But one of the other, it was another person that was a volunteer at the time, coordinate the volunteers. We were talking about it, and she's like, yeah, that's all. She said, that's the nurse. She says, were you scared? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, that's why she showed up. She said, she showed up to soothe you, make you feel better. And I thought about it, and I said, it worked because it got me focused on something else. And so I kind of forgot to be scared for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't want to be by myself anywhere in that building for a bit. But yeah, that whole hallway up there, actually the whole King Center, I think is, in my opinion, the most active areas. I've had the most interesting. And it's so sad because that second floor hallway, a lot of people don't investigate up there. And I always try to encourage people because they'll hit the main places, the Jacob's room, the alcoholics ward, all the big name places. But you've got this hall, there's areas with these rooms. And I tell you, I believe that second floor hallway is definitely one of the most active places. I've had most of my stories and encounters have been up in that area.
Well, I don't know if you remember the flashlight experience I had. That's where
I do.
I don't know if you remember.
Was it on that hall, or was it I was thinking that was down around the electroshock therapy area, down in the basement somewhere.
You're right, it was in the basement.
Yeah.
Because that's
I remember that you did
place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dark in there. And I remember, you said something about your flashlight and your batteries and all that. I think I probably said, welcome to St. Albans, because that's one of the most common things in that place is the batteries will just drain. Like, I've actually had my phone drop down to like practically zero from like 90 something. Then I get off the property and it's fine again. So I don't know. It's weird. Things are weird in that building.
Yeah. And then the next question I was going to ask was, have you heard of anyone else seeing that same younger girl? I mean, we talked about the nurse, but what about the young girl? We did talk about
not that I know of, but I mean, it's possible, but I've never spoke to anyone. I was like, I saw that girl too. So I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things in there, and I honestly think that some of the things that are in there maybe did not originate from that building. I think over the years, other things have like come and gone. I know when I was first there was a whole lot more you would see down in the King Center, down in that hallway. It was broad daylight and I was going through there, and I swear I saw what looked like little kids peeking around the doorway.
Ooh.
I used to see what looked like little, like just little shadows, like dart off, but they were little short ones.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I don't think I've seen one of them in a long time. I mean, many years. So I don't know what happened with that, but some things we can pretty much pinpoint that originated from the building. But I mean, really anything could just come and go through there, I think, especially with people come in and investigate, and it kind of opens things up more. Or maybe they might follow people in there too. So, but I don't think I've never heard of anybody that has had the exact experience like me that thought she was, anything like that. I mean, it's possible, but I really don't know.
And then I was going to ask if you heard of anything, like any kind of records, like about a young girl being a patient there or anything. That nurse that you talked about, I actually had heard about a nurse that, like in the 80s or 90s, that something happened to there. It happened there.
And I think it could have been because the way Heather described her nurse outfit, the length of her skirt, like that 3/4 length,
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of, back then. They were still wearing, a lot of times wearing the skirts. It just made me think of that. But she said that she didn't look like old timey or anything, but she did remark that she had on a longer skirt, not like ankle length, but below the knees. And a sweater. She said she had a sweater around her
Yeah, they
shoulders.
had like a navy blue sweater or something. Yeah, my mom.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to tell her about that, because that was just such a detail. She said, yes, she had a sweater around her. Wow. So
Yeah,
I have to
told
tell
you my
Heather
mom
that.
worked there. That's the outfit that she wore. I mean, I would have asked my mom about that, but you know how I told you how she is. So she won't even listen to me. Yeah.
Some people don't want no part of it. That's true. Yeah.
No. So oh yeah, there's only one question left.
We lost Jarrett.
Yeah, he texted me. His internet went out, but I figured we'd just keep going on trucking.
All right.
Why not? We've gotten this far. Why start over?
Right.
So, have you experienced any other kind of unexplained phenomena other than spirits? A lot of times, I hear that people have experienced multiple things. I don't know if I've told you, but I may have experienced spirits in my lifetime and a UFO.
I've experienced, well, my whole family, there was 4 of us. I actually came and got my husband out of bed one night so he could come witness this. It was me, that same daughter, Heather. We were here, and my oldest grandson. We were sitting out in my driveway. The International Space Station was supposed to fly over. And so we were going to sit out there. And this was been probably 10 years ago at least. Actually, probably a little longer. It was before I was at St. Albans. But so we were sitting out in my driveway, waiting to see the space station fly over. Now, I'm a big space geek. I have a telescope. I mean, I love to just go out there and,
I do too.
And look. So, I know what's normal. Well, I was watching and I seen something like this was in the northern sky go over. And my first thought was it was a satellite. And I thought, well, that's an odd satellite. I've never seen one go in that direction, that particular, because satellites, they have the same pattern. You can almost set your clock by when they're going to come around. And I noticed that, and as I'm watching it, it stopped. And then it shot in reverse direction, went back. And then it started doing all these like circles and like pendulum movements. It reminded me, I'll tell you what it reminded me of. If you've ever seen a male hummingbird when they're showing off with the female hummingbirds and they'll do all those crazy that's what this was doing in the sky, but it looked like a star. And I thought, my eyes is gone wonky. So I said, I just kind of pointed, I said, Heather, look up. I said, do you see anything up there? And she was looking, and then both of them noticed it. So we sat there watching it, and it would like stop and then like shoot off really quick and then reverse direction and come back. I don't know what it was. I come in here and I got my husband up, made him go out and look. He saw it. And then it's like it gave us a show and then it went on. And to me, it's a UFO because I certainly can't identify what it was. And So I found that intriguing. But as far as like at St. Albans, only thing I don't even know if it's spiritual or not, but that same year, that first year up there in that second floor hallway, I was in that room where I would hide out in, and I was waiting for the group to come down and get to my area. And the room across from where I was standing in, the door was pulled closed, but not all the way. It was open, probably about 6 or 8 inches. So I'm standing there just looking through the hole, kind of just staring down, waiting, And out of this doorway come this ball of light. It looked like a sparkler, like for 4th of July sparkler, but if it's condensed down into like a ball, and it was like the size of a grapefruit. It was a pretty good size, and it put out its own light, but it was about maybe a foot or so off the ground, but it came out of that doorway, come out into the hall, and I'm standing looking at it like, what on earth am I looking at? And then it stopped, and we just kind of like, I like to tell people, I felt like in that M&M's commercial at Christmas time, where Santa's there and they both faint because they do exist. That's exactly what I felt like. Yeah. These things do exist. And, but it kind of stood, it was kind of there for a moment, and then heard people coming, and then it shot off down the hallway. And I thought, well, that was weird. What is that? And I think you said it could be something called will-o'-the-wisp, which it could be. But then at another time, I want to say maybe a year or so later, but it was in the summertime, is me and a couple other volunteers were in the building doing some work. And this was out in the connector hall, a little room off the connector hall. And it looked like coming out of the wall, it looked like they was coming out of the wall, but they were much smaller, but they were like sparklers like that, but they were kind of more of an amber color. But it was like they were just coming out the wall and floating off. And the 3 of us was standing there looking at it. And I'm like, we're all hallucinating in here. I was like, it must be the mold in here or something, because we were all seeing this. That's the only time I've seen anything like that. I don't know what they were. But it was, I'm telling you, the building's odd. You stay in there long enough, you will see some of the strangest things. And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what the answers are.
Yeah, some of these we should go back and try and record for more stories from you sometime soon.
I'll tell you, I got all kinds of them. 8 years up in there, and it's just, I got a whole night of stories I could tell you on one thing. It would be like a chapter book. It's a saga. An entire night.
We can get them from you one at a time till the end of time, I guess, if you want. Who knows? Maybe you'll.
I think it's just spending so much time in there that it just I don't know. It's so weird because you get to the point. I've had people before. At one point, people's like, "Man, what's it like being in there?" And it's scary. And and it dawned on me. You get in there and it sounds weird, but you kind of get used to it. So like simple things like footsteps and stuff, you're like, oh, it's just it's like it's almost expected. And it's like, well, that sounds strange, but it's like you just experience that so much that sometimes don't even faze you anymore.
Wow. Well, hopefully you'll also get some stories from Ingles Castle.
I hope so.
That would be.
We're really hoping to save that place. That would be amazing. I mean, we was there at 2 hours one afternoon, and look at there. we had an experience.
Got 3 or 4 experiences. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's not more. Yeah, I'm excited to get
somebody Eagles. Just found a new one just a couple days ago in the video.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe I need to just really sit down and go through and really go through it like you didn't investigate, but maybe go through the audio and stuff and really look close and see. Because I couldn't believe that one from the other day. We had never heard that before.
That was shocking.
And it's plain as day. Now, my husband listened to it, and he said to him it almost sounded like something was like mocking you or something, because I think you had made some kind of a sound before that. And I said, well, yeah, I could see that too, but it had to have been something right there on you, because, the mics weren't working well that day. And whatever it was had to have been right there on you to have been picked up that clearly.
And it didn't sound like me.
No, it didn't sound like you. It sounded like something was, that's what I thought it sounded female. So I don't know.
So for those that don't know, Julie is going to, I guess, be leading the whole haunted Ingles Castle attraction.
Oh no, I can't take all the credit by myself. There's a group of us. I'm actually the Johnny come lately. There's several that's been there ahead of me, been trying to help the owner. It's actually still, part of the Ingles, descendants of the Ingles family. Um, we're making plans. We definitely have some things coming up for October. I'm not sure at this point how much will be paranormal related. I'm not sure how comfortable the owner is with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think they're like quite religious and everything, and they have, and I can see their point in a way, because what you really don't want is people to come in there, because the more people come in there and do that stuff, sometimes it'll, we don't want it to turn into, it's got kind of a good vibe right now and a good feel. I definitely feel like there's a female in that house, but she felt welcoming to me. I don't know about that back staircase. I felt like I was somewhere I didn't belong, and I got out of there real quick.
And off about that.
Yeah, that's the only place in that entire property that I had a feeling like, and I did. I felt like I was somewhere I didn't belong, and I got down those steps, and I was trying to find y'all, and I was looking for y'all, and I went down. I thought I'm gonna go down those stairs, and I would really like to put a recorder or something in there, and just to see, what happens. But yeah, that's just something we're still kind of working on. It's it's nothing definitive yet, but he doesn't. I think he's open to having like like groups come in and maybe have retreats and stuff like that. But right now I don't think he doesn't seem like he's real super comfortable with like just people coming in, and have to kind of sit down, come up with some rules and stuff that he would be happy with. It's really up to the owner. But we're definitely going to be having tours at some point, and we want to we want the place to be a big part of the community. And it's just how do we get there from here? And right now she needs a roof, so that's our number one goal, is to we're planning fundraisers to raise the funds for a roof. It's a slate roof, and it's going to be a lot of money to replace it. So yeah, there's we have a school teacher who's a history teacher, and his wife, she's a photographer and an artist, and I think she teaches too, but I'm not sure about that. And then there's another young fellow who's local. He's an architect, and he's been working with the owner for a few years with some of the restorations they had already done. And then there's another lady. She's into the historical stuff, and we've had meetings with several other people that are basically in the same situation. They have property that's been handed down for hundreds of years, and trying to find ways, to adapt it to a modern society and preserve these places so that they don't, nobody comes in and tears them down, and and then you lose them to history, because especially with that Ingles stuff, it's such a big part of the history of that area, that family, with the ferry and all that and stuff. And so yeah, we got our work cut out for us, I think, but it's not I'm excited. I'll tell you, I'm going to be happy when the day I can pull up in there and see a crew up on the roof fixing the roof. But we've got some good plans coming up. Nothing I can really put out there publicly yet.
Okay.
But stay tuned.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, thanks a ton for coming on and letting us interview you and share all this stuff. And well, Jared says he's sorry that he got his internet went out, but I think it's still
Dang, Jared, we missed you, man.
Yeah, I think it all went fine.
I think so.
And
seemed like there was something.
No, I think we went.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I was a little nervous because, I mean, like you interviewed me before, but it was just over the phone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was more of a just tell your story type thing, I guess. But yeah, first ever interview. Hope you guys liked it. Let us know what you think in the comments, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share it out. Thanks again, Julie.
Thank you for having me. Y'all take care.